Welcome to Histories and Native Tales, where we uncover the raw, unvarnished stories that Hollywood Westerns dare not tell. If you value authentic history, take a moment to like, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Your comments help us bring more of these powerful stories to light. Herman Lehman, a white man who lived as a Comanche warrior. His first-hand account offers us a rare glimpse into a world few outsiders ever witnessed. The year was 1878, and the scorching Texas sun beat down on the hill country's rugged landscape. A band of Comanche warriors had established their camp along a meandering creek, their teepees scattered beneath the protective canopy of oak trees. The water ran cool and clear, offering blessed relief from the relentless heat. For several weeks, the band had moved unhurried through their ancestral hunting grounds, tracking the dwindling buffalo herds and occasionally ambushing lone buffalo hunters who ventured too close to their territory. On this particular afternoon, 6 young braves had departed to scout for game, their horses' hooves kicking up dust as they rode out. Hours passed in the drowsy heat until suddenly 3 riders appeared as dark silhouettes against the brilliant sky. Their horses were lathered with sweat, sides heaving from hard riding. As they drew closer, the entire camp could see they rode alone, 3 warriors where 6 should be. Before they could reach the camp's edge, their cries of anguish split the air. The missing warriors lay dead, their bodies cooling in the Texas dirt, victims of a lightning strike by 30 Tonkawa fighters. The news sent ripples of rage through the camp. These were no strangers to the Comanche. The Tonkawa had inhabited central Texas long before, and both peoples shared a bloody history of reciprocal violence. Each raid, each death had deepened a cycle of vengeance that had shaped both tribes for generations. Decades of border skirmishes had transformed tribal rivalry into consuming hatred. Both sides had carved their vengeance into the other's flesh countless times, each raid more brutal than the last. Now, at the news of their slain brothers, the Comanche warriors erupted into action. They seized their war lances and shields, checking their powder and lead, slinging quivers across their backs. Their horses, sensing the tension, pawed the ground nervously as warriors swung onto their backs. Within moments, the war party thundered across the landscape, expert trackers reading signs invisible to untrained eyes, broken twigs, displaced pebbles, grass stems bent in the direction of flight. For 3 hours they followed the trail, their horses' muscles burning with effort as they covered mile after mile of harsh terrain. Finally, they reined in at a ridge's crest, and there below lay their quarry. The Tonkawa camp sprawled in the ravine's shelter, their guard dangerously relaxed. Warriors lounged around a cooking fire, their weapons set aside, clearly believing they had outdistanced any pursuit. The scene before them hung suspended in time, the lazy curl of cookfire smoke, the scattered horses grazing, the complete absence of sentries. Then came that terrible moment of recognition. Tonkawa eyes lifted to the ridge, widening in horror as they saw death itself looking down upon them. In that heartbeat of silence, no one moved, no one breathed. Then the Comanche war chief's cry split the air like thunder, his voice carrying the promise of vengeance. The Comanche warriors, their horses' hooves drumming a war beat, poured down the ridge's face into the ravine like a storm breaking over the land. The initial charge left a trail of carnage through the camp. Tonkawa warriors fell beneath slashing lances and thundering hooves, their bodies sprawled across trampled ground. Those who survived fled deeper into the ravine's shadows, abandoning their possessions to the victors. The Comanche warriors dismounted, moving through the camp with practiced efficiency. They took their trophies from the fallen, scalps pulled free with sharp knives, while others rifled through abandoned bags and bundles. A warrior approached the still-burning campfire, where meat sizzled on wooden spits above the flames. He reached to turn the cooking flesh, then froze. His face contorted in horror as recognition dawned. The meat was no game animal, but a human leg, unmistakable in its shape and form. His war cry of rage echoed off the ravine walls, bringing his fellow warriors running. The Tonkawa's cannibalistic practices were well known. They consumed the flesh of their enemies, believing it would transfer the warriors' strength to them. But to find evidence of their fallen comrades being prepared for such a fate ignited something primal in the Comanche warriors. Raw fury replaced tactical thinking. Warriors scrambled back onto their horses, weapons raised, screaming war cries that promised more than mere death. They spurred their mounts deeper into the ravine, following the Tonkawa's trail with single-minded purpose. The ground grew steeper, the walls closer, perfect terrain for an ambush. The Tonkawa had used their time well. In a natural bottleneck, where the ravine walls pinched together, they had constructed a hasty but effective defensive position. Brush and fallen logs created crude but serviceable cover. As the Comanche warriors charged into this killing zone, the Tonkawa opened fire. The ravine erupted with the crash of muskets and rifles. Horses screamed, warriors fell. The sudden wall of lead forced the Comanche to pull up short, their charge broken against the Tonkawa's prepared position. Bodies of warriors and horses littered the approach, forcing the survivors to seek what cover they could find among the rocks. The gunfire suddenly ceased. Through the drifting powder smoke, a lone Tonkawa warrior emerged from behind the defensive line. He sat tall in his saddle, his painted shield raised high above his head, decorated with symbols of power and protection. His voice rang out across the ravine, challenging any Comanche warrior to face him in single combat. The ancient tradition of personal combat still held power, even in this moment of collective fury. A young Comanche warrior spurred his horse forward, war lance held ready. The two circled each other, horses dancing beneath them, before clashing in a blur of motion. Shields cracked, lances thrust, but the Tonkawa's skill proved superior. The Comanche warrior fell from his horse, blood streaming from a mortal wound. A second Comanche champion charged forward to avenge his fallen brother, only to meet the same fate, his body crumpling beside the first. Whispers spread through the Comanche ranks. The Tonkawa's fearsome reputation for consuming their enemy's flesh was well known. They believed each warrior they consumed added their strength to their own. Some muttered that this champion's prowess came from feeding on the flesh of countless brave warriors, making him nearly invincible in combat. His victory seemed to confirm these dark suspicions, but the third Comanche warrior who rode forward proved his better. Their combat was swift and brutal, shields splintering, horses screaming, weapons flashing in the fading light. This time, it was the Tonkawa champion who fell, his body hitting the rocky ground with a final thud. His death broke something in the remaining defenders. The Comanche warriors, their battle fury reaching its peak, unleashed a thunderous war cry that shook the ravine walls. As one, they charged the defensive position, overwhelming it through sheer ferocity. The fighting devolved into desperate hand-to-hand combat, with knife and tomahawk replacing rifle and lance. When the dust settled and the last echo of battle faded, the cost became clear. 8 more Comanche warriors lay dead among the rocks, their lives given in the final charge. Another 40 or 50 nursed serious wounds, deep cuts, broken bones, and bullet wounds. Victory had been purchased at a terrible price, but for the Comanche, the settling of accounts was not yet complete. As Herman Lehman would later record, what followed would demonstrate the true depth of their vengeance. Herman Lehman's account of what followed speaks to the raw brutality of frontier warfare. The victorious Comanche showed no mercy to their fallen enemies. Those who lay dying begged for water, their pleas falling on deaf ears. With methodical precision, the warriors took their trophies, scalps, limbs, tongues, and added them to the very fire where their comrades' flesh had been cooking. The still living joined the dead on this makeshift pyre, their cries mixing with the crackle of flames as more wood was added to feed the blaze. Around the fire, the warriors danced in vengeful triumph, watching as the bodies were consumed by flames. The sounds and smells of this grim scene would haunt even hardened warriors. Yet when the last ember died and victory was complete, the Comanche returned to their own camp to face the cost of their revenge. There, they found their women deep in mourning. The wives of the fallen warriors wailed their grief to the sky, taking knives to their own flesh in ritual demonstration of their loss. Deep cuts marked their arms, faces, and bodies, their blood mixing with their tears. The camp, so recently energized by the desire for revenge, now fell into profound mourning. The funeral ceremonies that followed lasted days, each ritual performed with careful precision to honor the fallen and guide their spirits onward. The weight of loss settled heavily on the band. 3 months would pass before any warrior felt ready to venture out again, the taste of victory bitter with the price paid to achieve it. This story, preserved through Herman Lehman's eyewitness account, offers us a window into a complex world where honor, vengeance, and grief intertwined in ways often overlooked by conventional histories. Many such tales of intertribal conflict remain to be told, each adding depth to our understanding of this pivotal era in American history. If you found value in these authentic historical narratives, please support our channel with a like and subscribe. Your engagement helps us continue bringing these important stories to light, ensuring these perspectives aren't lost to time. Share with others who appreciate unvarnished historical truth.